This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make with the Pocket 3. Watch what can happen when you use autofocus in the wrong situation. Now look at the exact same shot using single or manual focus. Now shots like this can look terrible, but the fix actually is really simple. The issue is knowing when to use autofocus versus manual focus. Now most of the time, using continuous autofocus on the Pocket 3 works perfectly fine. However, there are a few times when in certain shots or compositions, using continuous autofocus will actually ruin the shot, such as a reveal. In the first shot, I'm using continuous autofocus. So wherever you point the camera, it obviously focuses on that. So as we move from behind the wall, the camera automatically switches to focus on the church. And that change is what spoils the scene. As in this case, focus and exposure changes because everything's in full auto. Now the fix is simple. Go to where the reveal is going to finish and then change focus to single point. Now tap on the screen and that's where the focus position will be for the camera. So now when we move from behind the wall to reveal the church, nothing changes and we don't see that ugly shift. Now before we go further, if you want a quick reminder of settings like this when you're actually out shooting, I've created a set of Pocket 3 field cards. They're completely free, and they're just simple reference cards you can keep on your phone or print out so you can remember things like focus settings and exposure when you're out filming. And I'll leave a link in the description if you want to download them. Remember, they're free. In this next clip, again we're using autofocus. And the idea was just to get some B-roll of me walking up the stairs of the restaurant. So at the start, the camera's focused on the stair rail. But as I walk past the camera, because I'm much closer to the lens, the autofocus system picks up on me and suddenly switches to me, and we get that ugly shift again. Then as I move away, it jumps back to the rail. So the camera constantly tries to decide which subject to lock onto. And because I pass very close to the lens, it temporarily grabs focus on me. Now the simple fix here would have been to use single point focus and lock the focus on the rail before recording. That way the focus would stay fixed and you wouldn't see that distracting shift as I walk past the camera. So remember, anytime something is going to pass close to the camera, the autofocus can get confused. Now, the idea was great here. I wanted to pan up to a reveal of a lady setting the breakfast tables and getting them ready. However, as we can see here, as I move down, the camera focuses on the bush and it's perfectly in focus. So as I pan up, we see the shift when it refocuses on the woman setting the tables. Now the fix would have been simple. Just set the single point focus on the lady first. Then when the camera moves, the focus stays locked. By the way, if you really want to get the most out of your Pocket 3, I also have a full Pocket 3 Masterclass, where I walk you through all the camera settings, shooting techniques, and real-world examples like this. And I'll leave a link to that as well in the description. Now let's take a look at where this was done correctly. Here the foreground is out of focus. But as we pan to the right, we reveal the pier and the ocean, which is where the focus was set. In this shot, we set our focus point to the top, so when we drop down and then move back up, we don't get that shift in focus. And here again, we set the focus to where the move will end. So when we move behind the pole and then back again, the focus stays stable. Now for the keen-eyed viewers, some of those last clips actually had a small mistake. See if you can spot it and then make your comment down below. Now this isn't just a Pocket 3 issue. It happens almost with any camera. Here we see the same thing happen on an iPhone. The reason isn't just autofocus. It's also because we place something very close to the camera. So the camera locks onto that. Then when it disappears, the focus jumps to the background. So if you're doing a close-up like this, give the camera a second to refocus, or use manual focus on the object. In this next scene, even though we're in autofocus, we don't see shift. So why is that? Because I'm further away from the camera, and both me and the background fall within the depth of field. Here's something slightly different is happening. The phone was focused on the building behind me. Now if you look carefully, you'll see that both me and the Pocket look slightly soft while the building is still sharp. And that's because it's locked the focus on the building instead of myself. But when filming alone, that's harder to judge. In this case, leaving it in autofocus might have worked better. Finally, a few more examples. This one is a bit of an oddball. As far as I remember, this was shot using autofocus. At the start, it actually looks like everything is in focus. The lantern, the boat, and the background all look reasonably sharp. But as soon as I walk into the scene, the camera suddenly locks onto the lantern, and I end up being out of focus along with the boat. So what's happening here is the autofocus system is constantly trying to decide what the main subject is. When I enter the frame, it reevaluates the scene, and instead of choosing me, it decided to lock onto the lantern as a subject that it wants to focus on instead. In theory, you might expect it to focus on the person entering the frame, but autofocus systems don't always make the decisions we expect. That's why it's a good habit to check your recording after each shot in the Memo app, because the Pocket screen is too small to easily spot focus issues like this. Pro tip: also, if you're shooting solo, it can really be helpful to quickly say what settings you're using at the start of the clip. That way, when you get back to the editing later, you know exactly what mode and camera settings you were using for that clip. In this shot, we moved the camera to frame more of the boat. Now we're still in autofocus, and use the Memo app to tap on focus where I'll be standing, so basically in the center. So if you're filming on your own, here's a useful tip. Use the Memo app, and then you can place a leaf, a stick, or a small stone on the spot where you'll be standing, and then set single point focus to that. So now you'll have a visual spot or marker so that we know where our manual focus is set to. So we'll try not to move too far away from that spot when filming. Finally, make sure if you're using autofocus that you have focus breathing set to on. This helps smooth out the shift when the focus moves from one point to another. So as you see, sometimes you have to be aware of the type of shot you're doing. Another pro tip here: take the time to check each shot when you do it, so you don't shoot all day and get lots of clips to go home, and then you find out that half your shots are out of focus. Remember, even autofocus can work if you're not too near an object that the camera will lock onto. Make sure focus breathing is on, and if you're doing any pans or tilts for B-roll, use single point focus and lock it to the end point, so the finish point that you're going to be recording to before you hit record, and try to shoot in 60 frames per second. Now for the answer to the question I asked earlier in the video during the pans and tilts. Yes, I did get the focus lock correctly, but in all clips I shot them in 30 frames per second, and it would have been better if I'd shot them in 60 frames per second. which gives me the ability to slow them down and make the movement a little bit slower in post. Okay, I hope you got something informative from this video, and if you did, you might want to consider subscribing. And now for more information and more things like this, watch this next video coming up.